Thank you. Welcome to the Sherborn Select Board meeting of Thursday, October 23rd. It is currently 6:30 p.m. We have a short executive session and then an open session. I would like to ask the Assistant Town Administrator to please read the executive session agenda.
Good evening. Item number 1 is a discussion regarding collective bargaining strategy for negotiations with the Sherborn Police Association, Mass Coalition of Police, Local 158, Police Bargaining Unit, pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, 3 and 7, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM, 449 Mass, 444, 2007.
All right, thank you. That is our only item, and I should also mention that all select board members are present. Dan Sickle to my right, and then to my left, Marion Neutra, Jeff Waldron, and Paul Durensis. All right, are there any amendments to the executive session agenda? All right, hearing.
Move approval as read by Assistant Town Administrator.
And I second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And as the chair, I do declare that an executive session is necessary for the purpose laid out in the agenda. So I move that we enter executive session.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Dan?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I might as well. We are now in executive session. All right, everybody, welcome back to the open session of the Sherborn Select Board meeting of October 23rd. It is now 7:01 p.m. And if I could have the Assistant Town Administrator please read the open session agenda, please.
Good evening. After I read the agenda, the board can vote to amend or approve the agenda. I've had no request for public comment tonight. Items can be taken out of order, and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. Item number 1 is the consideration of ratifying the employment agreement between the Town of Sherborn and Jeremy Marset, the Town Administrator. Item number 2 is the discussion with the Town Moderator, Michael Giamo, regarding the Governance Task Force. Item number 3 is an update from the Open Space Committee, Sam Nelson, Chair, and other members of the committee. Update on Laurel Irrigation Project using ARPA funds and project bid. Consideration of approving spending beyond the FY26 Recreation Revolving Fund limit to complete the project. Dave Welch, Recreation Coordinator, will be here to speak on that. Item number 5 is the consideration of a license agreement for electric transformer at 139 North Main Street, Laurel Fields. Dave Welch will speak on that one too, along with Sean Colleen. There is a consideration of signing a letter of support for Save Money with Clean Heat. Amelia Landau is here, the Sustainability Manager. Item number 7 is consideration of a memorandum of understanding between the Town of Sherborn, the Town Board of Library Trustees, the Sherborn Historical Society for preparation of space to be occupied in the Sherborn Library. And number 8 is the consent agenda, which is a payroll warrant, and ratify a one-day liquor license from Friday, October 17th for Pauline Bounds for St. Teresa's anniversary celebration. Item number 9 is select board reports, and item number 10 is TA updates.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Great. All right, so item number 1 is consideration of ratifying the employment agreement between the Town of Sherborn and Jeremy Marset, our Town Administrator. So I'm pleased to say that after a couple months, I guess now of minor back and forth, I think that we've come to an agreement, and it is mostly very similar to the previous contract, with the exception of a salary boost to match the sort of market rate. And I think I am personally very pleased to be keeping Jeremy on as the Town Administrator. I believe that Jeremy has done really as good a job as could be expected in your first of hopefully multiple contracts here. But again, I thank you for your service and the excellent job that you've done. And I look forward to continuing to work with you over the next 3 years.
Thank you. So can I make a motion?
Yes.
Can I move to enter into an employment agreement between the town of Sherborn and Jeremy Morissette as town administrator for the town of Sherborn effective October 23, 2025, which is today, through November 28, 2025.
2028, I set the revised one, I'm sorry, Paul.
Oh, it's not going to be more than just
Yeah.
3 weeks? Thank you for the correction.
I will happily second that.
Just under discussion, I wanted to echo what Steve just said. I've seen a lot of town administrators here in this town, and I think you're one of the best. And
You've seen all the town administrators in this town.
I've seen
All the way back to 1774. That's extraordinary.
You can't keep up with George Fisk. He's been town minister 3 times separately.
Really?
Thank you, Paul. Well, I think you've been one of the best, so I very much want you to stay, continue to prosper here. And the community is benefiting greatly from all the things that you've been doing.
Appreciate that.
I just add in, I think you've done an exceptional job, and I'm delighted that we are going to have you for another 3 years.
Yes, I third that or fourth that. Yeah, we're lucky to have you, Jeremy. I'm glad you're staying.
And one of the sayings I always hated when my boss would say, the reward for work done well is more work to do well.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity and happy to be continuing on helping you all out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, 3 more years of me telling everyone Jeremy can handle that.
Yeah.
All right, there's a motion and second on the board, and all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, it's official, and I guess we'll sign this. Let everyone stick around and make sure we sign this after
Is
the
that-
meeting.
Is that Mike's phone number there, maybe?
Yeah, next we have a discussion with the town moderator, Mike Jamo, regarding the governance task force. I don't know if, Mike, are you the phone number there?
404.
If you are, you're muted.
Otherwise, I don't know, Diane, did
He's
you?
on, because he sent me a text that says he's on.
Oh, okay,
Unless
It must be
has-
the phone number.
Yeah.
Hello,
there we go.
hello,
Oh, hello.
you guys there?
Yep.
Okay, that's great. So thank you for making time for this. As you may know, the Article 12 Town Governance Task Force at last year's town meeting says that the town moderator appoints that task force after consultation with the select board. So I'm here tonight to consult with the select board, although I have spoken with a few of you about some of these potential members, and I want to just run through. I think we've got a very strong group with a lot of knowledge of the town, and I'm very excited about the 5 members I'm proposing to appoint. And if it's okay with you, I was just going to list them and mention the context in which they've helped the town already in other situations. All right.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, great. So Mike Winters, who's a former advisory member, he stepped down from advisory this year specifically because he had some ideas for this task force. And so he's the first member I'm talking to you about. The second one is Brian Connolly. He's a longtime member of the Library Board of Trustees. He has a lot of ideas, and he has a lot of experience with how the town operates. Vicki Rellis was also formerly on advisory as well as the personnel committee, so she brings a lot of experience to bear as well. Eric Johnson, I don't know that I need to explain to you what he's done for the town, but he's a former select board member and recent chair of the select board. And Dhruv Kashal, a former advisory member and also a former assessor to the town. And so I'm proposing to appoint them and getting the work of the task force started.
Yeah, that sounds great. that's an excellent group you've put together. I'm glad you were able to get Drew on there. I admit I thought Drew was going to say he was too busy.
I think he said he was busy, but he was willing to do it, so that's really good.
That's excellent. Well, I mean, as you know, of course, I've gone back and forth with you trying to brainstorm some potential members, and so I'm pretty happy with this group of 5. But of course, I'd open up the floor to other select board members if you have any comments.
Just I want to be sure you told them there was no pay for all the work that we're expecting.
Yes, I think they know that's the usual rule with town appointments.
Yeah.
Salary.
I have one question, sort of if obviously any of us, but any other general sort of members of the public have ideas that they would like the governance task force to either, consider or look into, what would be the best way to sort of get that to them? Would it be to go through you or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm going to have much of an active role after these appointments are made. They're going to organize and then, set up their work schedule. I'll obviously, stay in touch with them about that. There's also someone who was a member of one of the prior task forces who said he'd be happy to consult with them about how they went about their work. I was trying to get them on the committee, but they didn't have time to do it, but they are willing to consult. So anyone with ideas can feel free to email me at my town moderator email, which is on the town's website. And once this committee organizes, they'll have public meetings, and people are encouraged and welcome to show up and comment to those meetings as well.
Great, and presumably all of their meetings will be posted on the town calendar?
They should
Great.
be, yes. Yep.
Yep.
I have a question for you, Mike. This slate looks great. Is this a one-time task force that will work a certain number of years and then be disbanded? Or do you see this as an ongoing task force with turnover, or say 3-year terms or whatever?
No, I think they would all quit if it was going to be an ongoing thing, Marion. They've committed, consistent with the warrant article last year. They're supposed to do their research and their thinking and write up their report over a 9-month period for consideration at future town meetings. So the way I would envision this playing out is once they organize, they will have some research to do, and they'll meet to discuss their ideas, and eventually they will report back for a town meeting that, would either be the annual meeting probably in 2027 or possibly a special meeting if they had enough things to come back to the town with. And I know we've done it both ways in the past. This is the third of such committee. The first one, I believe, resulted in both a special town meeting and then further consideration at the general town meeting, the regular town meeting. And I think the second one did its work, and I believe their recommendations went on the town meeting warrant the following year. So that's the idea with this one. And then they're disbanded.
General comment that many of my towns have built-in either bylaws or charter provisions that say that there will be a government study committee every 5 years in one town, every 10 years in another town. But that this would be a recurring thing, that we need to look at ourselves from time to time. And also, the general court keeps enacting laws and makes changes, so there may be things there that we could have a committee recommend we adopt or incorporate into our government. So it makes sense to have this done on a repetitive basis.
Yeah, this is the third one.
Yeah.
I think one of the recommendations in the second one was that in 5 years it should happen again. So we're doing that.
Right.
Since I have the floor, I'll just say, I also think this is a terrific slate of appointments to the task force.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all.
You need a vote or any kind of,
I don't know that I need a vote. I think I'm supposed to consult and then make the decision, and I've got your guidance. What I hear is that everybody's pleased with this slate, and it is hopeful for the committee's good work, and I think that's a great outcome. So thank you.
Great.
Thanks for doing the work to identify a great slate.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for all the help of you and others who have given me ideas of who I can call. I won't say it was easy. I mean, I went through a lot of people who also would have been good candidates and just didn't have the time or interest in doing it this time. We've got a lot of great people in town who, have given a lot to the town, and these 5 are willing to give a little bit more. So I'm thankful to them and thankful to all of you for what you do. So thank you. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, bye.
All right. Third up on the agenda, we now have update from the Open Space Committee. And for that, I've got Sam Nelson.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to give a quick update on the activities of the Open Space Committee. And if I could, I'd like to share my screen.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
I know where
Okay.
it is too.
Yeah, nice picture of the Barber Reservation here. So I'd like to actually start with tonight's discussion with a quote from Teddy Roosevelt. And it's the quote that he's pointing to on this sign right here. And in case you can't read it, it says, protect and preserve the remaining forests upon public lands from devastation and destruction, which have been the fate of those in forest sections of the country. And that's what he said in 1908. And as you know, Teddy Roosevelt was one of the great conservationists in the history of this country. He founded the U.S. Forest Service and created several national parks. And he also was one of the greatest proponents of outdoor recreation. He is an avid hiker, and he was a proponent of the strenuous life. And I'm sure that if Teddy was alive today and living in Sherborn, that he would be a member of the Open Space Committee. Because his goals and our goals are essentially exactly the same. The primary mission of the Open Space Committee is to protect and promote the environmental and recreational resources in our open spaces. And in order to do that, the Open Space Committee produces the Open Space and Recreation Plan, which is, as I wrote here, kind of an environmental master plan for the town. It guides town planning, and it's essential if we want to apply for state funding for open space or recreation programs. The report needs to be updated. It used to be every 7 years. It's now every 10 years. And so ours is due in 2028. A little backstory here, I won't get into it very much, but we had prepared the first half of the open space report, all the revisions, and then we got news that the state has changed its requirements for this plan, and so we needed to not quite start over, but we needed to go back and do quite a bit of editing and additional work. And so we were able to and encouraged to apply for an extension up until 2028, although we all certainly hope that we will get it done before then. Here are the members of the current committee. And the two things I wanted to remark on with this is the fact that we have a wide variety of committee members with different committee assignments and backgrounds and points of view. We have Select Board, Energy and Sustainability, Groundwater Protection, Town Forest, Disability and Disability Advisory Committee, Recreation, Sherborn Forest and Trails, and then what we lack as members are regular participants, Heidi, Joyce, and Amelia, and Christina are able to contribute their particular strengths as well. So we have a really talented, really good committee with a variety of viewpoints. And the other point I just wanted to quickly make is the fact that we have really benefited this year from having Marion and Tom and Kelly on our committee, because they produced the 2018 report, and they have the experience and the wisdom to have helped keep us on track and get us moving on this particular edition. So it's been really helpful to have them. And speaking of 2018 plan, I just wanted to quickly give a partial listing of some of the achievements that were done by different committees in town following the plans of the Open Space and Recreation Plan. So as you can see here, the Groundwater Protection Committee was reestablished, and it established a database of wells and septic locations under the leadership of Tom. Concom has developed an environmental maintenance plan with the great help of Kelly McClintock. We now have over 50% of our land is now in some sort of protected status, and a great deal of thanks go to the Sherborn Rural Land Foundation and George Fisk on that. We rerouted the Bay Circuit Trail through Dover in order to get to Medfield, bypassing the very bad section on Route 27. And lastly, thanks to Dave Welch and his management, the Recreation Commission has upgraded recreational facilities at our major sports fields. So in revising our new program here, we began in 2023. The Open Space and Recreation Plan is essentially divided into two parts. The first part is an inventory and analysis of current conditions. The second half is based on those conditions. What are our view of needs and recommendations for the next 10 years? So we have gone through and done the analysis, the inventory of our natural resources, our recreational resources, and our efforts to protect open spaces. And we've identified 6 broad goals at this point that are going to form the basis of the new Open Space and Recreation Plan. And those are the ones that we have in bold here: protecting water resources, promoting environmental health of our forests and fields, safeguarding our open spaces, trying to give more residential awareness education, and establishing a community stewardship program for our open spaces, expanding informal outdoor recreation for people of all ages and abilities, and lastly, improving our athletic facilities and fields for organized recreation. So we've gone through and have a rough draft of the background information. Right now, what we are doing is preparing what we call our action tables, or based on our assessment of needs, what are the various recommendations that we propose to give to the town. And here is just an example of one item from one of the action tables, just to give you an idea of how we put this thing together. So one of the needs that we identified in our analysis of current conditions is the fact that our forest canopy in Sherborn, which is one of the tremendous assets of our town, is highly vulnerable to climate change and also to homeowner tree removal. And as a consequence, one of our goals is to try to protect and preserve our tree canopy. And then the next column identifies a variety of actions, possible actions that we propose that might go further to help our recommendation in preserving our trees. So everything from identifying what are the most serious threats posed by climate change, creating a new forest management plan, updating the tree manual, encouraging homeowners to save their trees and not cut them down, and monitoring the condition of public trees on our town lands, and especially scenic roadways. And then the last column here is what we are proposing to be the lead committees in town on these various actions. So for example, number 1, identifying the most serious threats. we are assuming that the committees most involved with this would be the Conservation Commission, Town Forest Committee, the Sherborn Fire Department, Department of Public Works, and we might add a couple of more in that before we're done. And then listed further down are the variety of other committees for these other possible actions. And the last column focuses on a time frame for these various actions. And what we've done is to put a time frame, but also a priority, what we are proposing to be the most important, number 1, and the less important, number 2, 3, and 4. Once we get our action table set, the next step is to take these tables out to our proposed implementing committees so we can discuss our ideas, for example, with the Conservation Commission, see what they think of our proposals, our timelines, our suggested priorities, get feedback from them. And ultimately what we do is through a back and forth, we get information from the committees and we revise the plan accordingly. So the Open Space and Recreation Plan is really a cooperative venture between the Open Space Committee and all the various committees that we work with. At the same time, another thing that we are producing right now is a new survey of resident opinion about open space and recreation. We have written a survey. We are tinkering with the last elements of it, getting it finalized, and we hope to be able to send that out to all residents in a couple of weeks, and give them about a month in order to produce this so we get feedback from residents about their particular priorities. So we will have information from committees and residents about what they see are the biggest needs for the next 10 years. And then once we revise the action plan, we'll revise the report for publication, get approval from town committees, and ultimately send it in for the state approval. And then in the future, we are undoubtedly going to continue our primary mission of tracking the implementation of the report. And we do that by continuing contact with various committees and finding how they're doing on their various goals, keeping in touch with them. We have folks who are the liaisons for different committees to keep that communication open. And we will continue to try to sponsor committee updates to the select board on how they are implementing the various goals as well. And then under discussion in our committee is the opportunity to expand our mission, one of them being to create more outreach programs for residents, because we recognize, for example, that mitigating climate change really is going to involve everyone, not just town land, but residential private property as well. So it's really important to get everyone on board with some of these goals. And we really want to try to create an outreach program so we can educate residents on how they can best manage their properties and how they can also contribute and volunteer to maintain some of our open spaces at the same time. And lastly, we are thinking about creating a more vibrant, dedicated website for sharing more environmental news and information about what's going on among all the committees that are involved in maintaining our open space and recreation. So I think that is it. And happy trails. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to take any.
You go first. A couple of points. First of all, thanks for the excellent presentation. Very much needed, everything you're planning to do. One comment is that I have, in the context of litigation involving other communities, used those communities' open space plan as a reason why land shouldn't be disturbed, certain land shouldn't be disturbed. So to the extent that you have in your open space plan helpful and useful information, let's put it that way, it becomes very helpful in the context of trying to manage development for the city or town to use this not just as an education piece, but actually as a weapon in its defense if it comes to that. And the other comment I would make is about the role of the private property owner. So I have a forest, and it's not just a matter of looking at the forest. The forest needs to be managed and cared for. It's a living thing. So I have to have a forester. The forester goes through the forest. Sometimes you have to remove trees. And in one of my forests, we had a gypsy moth infestation. So we removed the trees that were infected. And it was amazing the number of people who stopped and objected. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to see how many people love the forests in Sherborn and love the character that it gives to our community. But if you don't treat gypsy moths, they're going to spread. They're going to spread from my property to the rest of the town. We had to do something. We had to remove the infected trees. The point is that homeowners, it's not just a matter of doing nothing with trees and letting them be. Trees require care and management and a little bit of love. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Jeff, go
Does
ahead.
anyone else have comments? I was gonna go last. Anyone else have any?
Oh,
Sam, this is Jeff. This is related, but an aside. You were not on the library trustees meeting last night, and I know Brian's on the call here, but you were recognized last night, and I want the people here to recognize all the work that you and your team did on the library embankment and replantings that were done in front of the library. It's a phenomenal improvement, and I know that, and I've been here on Sundays when you were here, so I know it was a labor of love, but a big labor. So to you and the team, and sharing from library trustees meeting last night, many thanks for improving the landscaping around the library.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that. And I just want to say it was a real team effort. And I see that my compatriot in arms for the last many years on this project, Margot Powicki, is on here. So I definitely just want to mention her name. And I thought I saw Sean enter. Sean has been a great help. Jeremy, and also just to mention that the library trustees came through with a very generous grant to help us complete that. As you know, most of that project, the staircase and most of the plantings came from an ARPA grant. So I can again turn around and thank you for giving us an ARPA grant to make this project possible. So it really helped, and it's very nice to get this done. And it seems like it's kind of one of the last stages of the library renovation project then finally get done. So I think everyone feels pretty good about it. But I appreciate your kind words, Jeff.
Brian can validate them.
all right. Well, thank you, Sam. We really appreciate all the hard work that you're putting towards this. I'm sure Marion, especially having put together the previous plan, knows exactly how much work it is, and the entire town very much appreciates it.
Thank you.
All righty. On to item number 4, update on the Laurel Irrigation Project, ARPA funds and project bid, and consideration of approving spending beyond the fiscal 26 recreation revolving fund limit to complete the project. And for that, we have Dave Welch, the recreation coordinator.
Great, thank you. So the last time I was before you talking about or providing an ARPA update was back in April of this year. And we shared with you then sort of a similar format and presentation in terms of what milestones have been reached, what's left to do, what the timeline is for that, as well as an update on what we have spent or exhausted from the ARPA allocation, what the remaining project expenses are, as well as where the funding sources may come from. And so, for those that were here, the format may look familiar. It's just been updated. Is our presentation?
Oh, do you want me to share?
Yeah, just the.
Yeah.
If you could, the PowerPoint.
My phrase applies to you too, an open space reward. Allow us more work to do. My comment applies to you also, the reward for work, to allow us more work to do well. On open space.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have this in our packet.
Yes.
Yeah.
To Karina next to try and read it.
Yep.
We have read this stuff.
Okay, great. So I won't spend a ton of time on this particular slide. I'd only like to say that since we last met, this project's actually gone out to bid twice. The first time we went out to bid, this came back too high, well beyond the estimate in our budget for being able to complete the project. And so a bit of value engineering was done by the consultant, and went out to bid a second time in August. Between those two bid periods, some work was done at the site by Cummings. They installed pumps inside each of the two wells. And so, as we sit here today, since April, some work has been done on the site as well as two rounds of bids. The most recent bid that came back was not, it was above our estimate, but it was closer and more realistic to what the estimate was for what we were expecting. And so the Recreation Commission took that to come up with a proposal in terms of how to get to the finish line. And so when you look at what's left on that timeline to completion, those are the steps that are remaining today. So in terms of the financials on the next slide or the next page, if you're looking at your packet, you'll see an updated, since April, an updated ARPA project expenditures in terms of the money that's been consumed to date. I do want to note that there was a split invoice on the Eversource power to the site where 51,000 or so that money came from ARPA. The other 40,000 came out of the fiscal year 25 recreation operating funds. So the remaining project expenses, which are in the middle column, are basically what is left on the project to complete. Once the power is brought to the site, we do need an electrician on site for it to hook up the power from the street and to make it usable for the system, the irrigation system, to power it. The irrigation consulting line item is the engineer and consultant that we've been utilizing for the project. So you'll see them both in the left-hand column and also in the middle column. That is the estimated money left, primarily under construction administration at this point. The water travelers are the systems that are the two pieces of equipment that we use to water the facility once the system's in place. But the big number there is what came back from the bid. So our estimate was around $175,000, $180,000. It came back around 209,000. So the Recreation Commission took all these inputs after the bid came back. They met in early October, and in the far right-hand column is the proposal on how the Recreation Commission believes is the best way to get to the finish line. So we exhaust the ARPA funds, which has a balance of $107,000 roughly. We use $40,000 this fiscal year. Another 12,000 in the next fiscal year potentially, as well as while we're here tonight, utilizing 132,000 or $134,000 from the revolving fund for recreation.
Can I ask a question, Dave? This is useful, but not for tonight, but it'd be interesting to see the overall entire project cost, because this doesn't really show that. There's, some of the costs have already been expended in prior periods and everything, unless I'm misreading this.
I think, Dave, could you sum the 242,000 and the 291,000? Is that the total project cost?
Plus 40.
Plus another 40.
Okay, so the ARPA project expenditures are actually the project expenditures previous to now. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, because there's ARPA expenditures over here too.
No, the ARPA, I believe, Dave, right? The initial ARPA allocation was 350,
That's correct.
and then this is coming in at like 575 as the
Correct.
total.
Okay, which would be the 107 and the 242 is the 350 you're coming. I just think that maybe showing in future presentations the total cost of the project would be useful.
Okay.
What was that sum, Dan?
So I got the sum of the 242, the 291, and the 40, and came up with about roughly 575 and change. So from 350
that's-
is the initial estimate allocation to
I think it's just be
total
useful
completed
to
cost
show
of
the
that.
overall magnitude of what we're doing. And a positive way, we're showing, open space and recreation and all the sports teams what it takes to support. And we know that Laurel Field was, never, topsoil was removed by the original landowner before they donated it to us. So we know that you weren't working from a silk purse. You had a sow's ear you were trying to straighten out.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to bring us back to sort of the big picture, where we have recreation as a very important part of life in Sherborn. It's very important to our young people, but also to all ages. And Laurel Field is and can be quite the gem of our recreational assets. We find that there was a lot of pressure and ideas for people to put an artificial turf field in various places. And the pushback from environmentalists and people concerned about the long term felt that turf fields weren't a good idea. So what was going to be the substitute to turf fields was grass fields. But for grass fields to work, the grass needs support. And so, thank God, the Recreation Commission took the ball and ran with it, literally, and got a touchdown here because you pursued the idea of this irrigation. And there were moments where we didn't think there was enough water, there wasn't enough water pressure, and all of that stuff. But the vision that we're working towards is to have green fields usable over a longer period of time that's going to benefit all the children in the town and all their sports activities and all of us who make use of fields for our own activities. A wonderful undertaking. So it's something that I think all of us should be supporting as to the full extent that we can. Just one little legal comment I would add to this is that you can't now spend money from the fiscal year revolving account of 2027 because we're in fiscal '26. So that's a commitment that you're all making, that you will do that in that year when it's eligible to be spent. And maybe by then there'll be more needed, or maybe there'll be less needed. But we can't expend money we don't have yet. It hasn't been collected, it's not in an account, all those things.
Just to explain that number, which may remedy it, is that the design of the system to maximize the amount of water it can produce per day and deliver per day would use 2 to 3 travelers, depending on how you do your math and what the rate of water that's coming out. The recommendation from the consultant was you don't need 2 to start. You can certainly just start with 1. And so that 12,000 effectively represents just buying 1 in this fiscal year and buying 1 later.
Great.
Does that mean, Dave, that there'd be 2 fields that would be irrigated? Is that what?
No, the traveler can be hooked up anywhere. And so it doesn't limit you as to where you use it. It's just that maximum utilization of the system, you have 2 travelers out there watering at night.
Okay. So how much area do you plan on irrigating in general?
So the way the system is, it's going to need to be targeted. So there's not enough water that's produced to water the entire facility nightly. Thankfully, there's areas that are close to the wetlands that don't need as much attention as the ones that are furthest from the wetlands. So you use tactically to help the fields that need the most attention. And so if you were to go and walk the fields today and look at the fields that are in the worst condition, foreseeably those are the ones you'd be giving the water to.
2 to 4 of the fields.
Question, this is something that I'm not particularly worried about because I know you'll manage this, but I do have a question about the impact of the operating funds expenditures on your programs. Will there be any impact at all?
No. So the programs are funded through revolving. And so the majority of our programs run positive, and we have some that run negative, but they're for the benefit of the people who participate in them, and other programs help cover them. But the revenue generated from the programs goes into the revolving fund, is paid for through the revolving fund, and is outside of the operating fund. So the trade-off you're making by using, maybe this is where you're going with the question potentially, is the 40,000 that you're spending this year would be in place of doing more fertilization, more seed. But quite frankly, we wasted a lot of fertilization and seed because we didn't have water, especially during the most recent dry spells. And so to the Recreation Commission, it seems to be prudent to take part of that operating budget to get this thing completed, so that when you are utilizing or you are throwing down seed and fertilizer, that it has that essential component of water to help it along.
Yeah, just to help clarify, as far as available funds for the budget, there's an operating budget, in the operating budget funded by the general fund of $150,000 per year.
Right.
And then there's a separate recreation revolving fund, which has a limit that's set by town meeting each year. Last town meeting, it was set at $150,000, the expenditure limit. Looking at the past 5 years of revenue into the revolving fund, that's about $163,000 per year in revenue, which seems one of the reasons I believe town meeting set the spending limit at 150. That's a sustainable amount. Current balances of that 150 in the revolving account As of yesterday, $97,000 had been spent of the 150 spending limit. And out of the operating budget, $45,000 had been spent. So there's a balance in the operating budget of $100,000 and in the revolving fund limit of about $40,000. So that the current request here to spend an additional $132,000
Correct.
from the revolving account. So you'd be raising your limit based on this request from the 150 to, what is that, $280,000 spending limit for the recreation revolving fund.
What's the current revolving fund balance?
The current fund balance is $242,000.
Okay.
I believe Deb's on the line as well, but I'm reading these numbers. Deb Seifring, the
Great.
finance director, put this all together.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the correct numbers.
So glad to see that this is getting to the finish line. Few questions and comments. Is this, in terms of cost, is this everything so that this is going to finish it? Or are there still some unknowns, uncertainties where something might come in at a higher estimate than what's here on the page so that there might be additional expenses still to get this done? I'm just trying to get a sense of what's ultimately the all-in cost.
So if you had asked that exact same question in April, I'll start there and look at what has transpired since then. One thing has gone up, one thing has gone down. So I'll just, in terms of reality, it's a good question. So for example, we had estimated the Cummings that work that you see there on the left, we paid for ARPA that came in around $20-something thousand. That was originally estimated, if you looked at my presentation from the spring, to be a $36,000. So it is possible that some of these measures could come in less. The bid is certainly higher than what we were looking for.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why we're here, but that bid is now the number. So it's a little bit more airtight. Irrigation consulting, depending on how the project goes from a construction administration standpoint, that may come in less, but I wouldn't assume that.
Could come in more though, right?
So short experience working on projects, but at least as it relates to every single phase that they have completed so far, they've come in at or below. So they're either right on it or a little bit below it. I'd like to think, knowing Jeff, the individual we've been working with for years, is that in the way he does his business, they'll probably be around that number or less.
Okay. So sounds like things may shift around, but it sounds like you're saying there is not sizable risk of another 50,000 to finish the project.
To the best of our knowledge, to all the information that we have to date.
Okay. I mean,
Is there additional permitting to do with?
yeah, that was my next question.
So that's a good question, and I'd have to look at, I'll have to go back and look at the IP in terms of who owns that, because that's probably spelled out there.
I believe there is some additional, I think they require permitting or follow-up information with the Board of Health.
Well, they want us to go back before we get started and, well, it's two different things. There's the Board of Health and there's conservation.
Yep.
And so those are two additional steps that we will still need before we get underway and/or
Is there a timeline for that?
for.
For BOH and CC and Concom?
So Concom told me that the last time I spoke with them the past week or so is that they want us to meet with them, to have a meeting with them and the construction before they get started. And they just need a few days' notice before that. On the Board of Health side,
So the Board of Health only has jurisdiction over the wells which they were signed off on. We did a pump test for, specific data and a pretty extensive environmental test on the water. Doesn't exactly match what Sherborn Board of Health does for a residential well. But it took great effort to do that because we had to bring generators out on the site.
Yeah.
Of course, I was on vacation, so I had to manage that on an island in one section. We committed to doing the standard Board of Health test when the system's built, when we have electricity. We're not gonna go back, it's costly, the contractors had to be there, we had to get generators, et cetera. So once it's built, we'll redo the test. We did, what did we do, 48 hours? The Sherborn Board of Health is 4 hours. So, it's dotting the i's and crossing the t's, so that final sign off will be when the system is there, the power is there.
But it sounds like, Sean, it's dotting i's, crossing t's. There aren't any major hurdles still to get over.
There shouldn't be, and we had, very good results with the chemistry.
Yeah, okay.
Which was a concern.
Okay.
So, the 4-hour test, rather than having to have a contractor, we'll be able to do that with the system. It won't be costly at all.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, good, thanks. Couple more things I wanted to just get into. So I share, Paul's enthusiasm for what the final project is going to be, but just the point of those questions is just, it has gotten to be a much more expensive project than where we started. So just trying to get a sense of overall, what might we get to. All right, so 2 other things. On the revolving fund, I know in the past there'd been some issues with revenue coming into the revolving funds in a timely way. What's the status of that?
So improvement, we're in good shape in terms of field rentals for the spring and summer. Those have, at this point, been completely collected, so that's good. We still have a handful of families that still owe us money for some token programs, which happens every year. Lunch bunch and summer around. There's a handful of those that are still outstanding, but as far as field rentals go, those are all set. We did complete recently invoicing for the existing fall season.
For fall season, right?
Something that the Recreation Commission, with the guidance of our partners in finance, undertook for this fall season was to add both not only due date, but a late fee on our invoices, which is something, believe it or not, that we haven't had before. And so our hope is that we had a better spring and summer collection period, but they were still paying. We're trying to make it less painful and get money in more quickly.
Okay, thanks. And the last thing is just on the revolving fund spending limit. Advisory has to approve that as well. And I'd be interested in knowing, what's advisory's thinking about this. I know advisory hates it when anybody on the select board says that, but while I share Paul's enthusiasm for the final goal, there is the step here, and then there's also the advisory step, and I'd certainly be interested in knowing what advisory is thinking about this.
So you're proposing taking no action?
I'm just putting it out there. I'd sort of just want to see what other people,
Can we ask if there's any deadlines that?
Sure, of course.
Before the 29th?
So the contractor and the operation manager who I've been working with for the firm that would be awarded the bid if the funding is there, they're basically ready to move forward. I think they're wrapping up 2 projects up in Maine over the next coming weeks. We're next up if this gets funded. The sooner they can get, shovels into the ground, the more likely they can hit our targets in terms of what's in the IFB for completing the project on time. And so that's their perspective.
Advisory is taking it up next Wednesday, is my understanding.
When does the bid expire, do you know?
Sure, you said it's 60 or 90 days.
I don't recall.
Like, I know we need to take action on it within 30 days, which I think we have. Right, and then there's a second.
I think it was another 30.
There's another 30.
The issue isn't really the contract. You probably still might get it in, but the longer you drag it out, the closer you get to winter.
Right.
And then we're gonna be ripping the fields up in the middle of spring.
Right.
And we could be underwater, you know. The irony is you build an irrigation system in a fund and it'll be a colossal mess if we continue to push it, standing around waiting for what the other guy might do.
So I think we ought to, I respect your position, but I think we ought to approve this. I mean,
I have a few more questions. I have a few more questions. So number one, between the first bid and the second bid, there was a redesign of the project, right? So what was changed or lost or compromised in that redesign?
Mainly, we decreased the number of couplings that are basically connection points where those traveler sprinklers may connect to. So we lose some convenience. So, you know, you're still gonna be able to water the entire facility. You just gotta walk a little bit further in some cases to initiate or connect your equipment. There was some material that, based on changes of the design over time, to you know, the initial estimates included, I think, a higher flow rate of water. And so bigger pumps, more power, larger conduits. Some of that got right-sized. They didn't use a substantial material grade for the project. So those are the two main things, if I understand correctly.
So in terms of the end function of the system, nothing significant was lost in the redesign. Okay, and then, so you're effectively asking for $130,000+ in additional revolving fund. I also was gonna ask about the operating budget in terms of, you know, what was subsequently not being paid for out of the operating budget, but I think you've already answered that. But in terms of the additional $130,000 in the revolving fund, are there, like, were those funds being set aside or planned for some other future projects that essentially now they can't be used for because of this?
No. I think based on the meetings that the Recreation Commission has had and discussions they've had about other priorities and initiatives, my understanding would be is that if there was something else, in other words, I think specifically the way we worded it when we submitted it, I don't know how the motions eventually get worded, but I'm not sure this actually answers your question either, but we specifically asked for these proper funds or the additional money for the revolving fund in that dollar amount only to be used for this project, and that's it. So for whatever reason it came in under, we're not going to, I don't think there's an expectation that that money would in turn, because of a reason, the limit would be all of a sudden somewhere else. Is that the question you're asking, or am I getting that?
I mean, part of it is that, you know, several years ago when I was on advisory, the whole way that the recreation revolving fund was utilized was changed in such a way that basically you could build up a larger fund balance with an eye towards essentially saving up for future capital projects. So essentially what I see now is that $130,000 of the money that has been building up has now been unexpectedly put towards this project. And my assumption would be that there were probably other significant capital projects that recreation had in their sites that now would not be, you know, utilizing these $130,000.
I'll defer to Jeremy, I think, yes.
No, I just wanted to point out some of the finances of why there's the $242,000 balance.
Sure.
For a number of years, the revolving fund, since an operating budget line had put in the general fund budget, the revolving recreation revolving fund has not spent as much as it did prior to that. So there was more funds building up. There was a collections issue last year, as you were aware. So like I said, on average, the revenues were about $163,000 per year on average. But 2 years ago, only $88,000 was collected. And then just last fiscal year, there was a windfall of collections from late collections of $310,000.
Oh, wow.
So I think that really answers your question. There wasn't other projects that were gonna be allocated to use those funds. Those funds have now just appeared.
Okay,
There's no plan to use them.
sure.
There presumably are other rec commission
There
capital
might be.
projects that in principle these could have been used for if they
Correct.
weren't
And
devoted.
there's, in the long-term capital plan, there's other items in there as well.
Right. Yeah, mostly I'm just sort of wondering, like, are there things that are necessary that are now either going to get deferred because of this, or alternatively will be coming to town meeting for an actual capital expenditure that will require, town borrowing or something, as opposed to having been funded through the revolving fund, which was sort of that was the vision for why we, changed the way that the revolving fund was being managed, if that makes sense,
The revolving fund is still a source of funds for another appropriation for capital,
Yeah.
should you wish.
Sean?
I remember exactly what you're talking about. One of the major things in the future, which is still in the future, is starting to rebuild some of the soccer fields. Obviously, that queues up behind the irrigation system, the pool errands to try to rebuild it without the irrigation. So this system is scaled so that you can add pieces of the irrigation system as you build out the fields. So that would be a future project.
Right.
Which would be frustrating that we've been trying to put together a 5-year forward-looking capital improvement plan, which has not identified any work on the soccer fields. So if there is additional work that the Recreation Commission would like to do, they really should include that in a forward-looking 5-year capital plan so that we can plan on those expenditures.
I think the one item that is on the capital plan is 150,000 for a tool shed and pavilion. I think is the one item that's on the capital plan.
Okay. I thought wasn't more of the Jameson Fields, I think are also on the capital plan as well, right?
Correct. So we've already done, Jameson 1.
Yeah.
Jameson 4 is right now, is in the process of supposed to be renovated. And I think the next one up after that, we skinned J3 when we restarted youth softball in town 2 or 3 years ago. So it wasn't a complete renovation, but we spent more on a revolving than you would have in a normal year opening a baseball diamond.
Sure.
So the next one up would be Jameson 2. It's in bad shape, and that is something in the future that will need to be renovated.
Yeah.
But it is on the capital plan, I believe.
Yeah, I'm essentially what I'm doing right now is I'm sort of channeling my past advisory chair hat because every time somebody says, "Oh, here's this project. Oh, it's costing more," or this or that, and it's saving money right now. In my head, I'm always like, "All right, well, that money probably could have been used in the future for something else." And so now, 2-3 years down the line, there's going to be this capital project that the town's going to have to pay for that people don't connect those dots into the past and say, oh yeah, well, if that thing hadn't happened in the past, we wouldn't have to pay for this right now, if that makes sense, So every time I see something that is costing, and even though this is revolving fund and this is your money, it's another, what was it, $175,000, right? And then in the long run, if it's going to be the taxpayers that are now going to have to supplement the Recreation Commission, that's something that I think it's important to have out in the open, that everybody understands, particularly the taxpayers, that this is what we are, voting for or approving right now, is utilizing funds that could have been used for something else, that if those things are deemed necessary, will ultimately have to be funded by the taxpayers. And so then that gets to my sort of last question, which is also something that I almost always asked people when I was on advisory, which is, what if we say no? So what happens if we say, no, you can't have an increase in the revolving fund, and you've got to come up with a different plan? And I'm not saying that that's what we're going to say. I just need to know what the option is. And, I think one of the things, the sunk cost fallacy it's a thing that everybody falls right into. And I recognize that we have spent $250,000 on this project. We've got these wells drilled, and I know Sean is gonna say, you can't not use these wells. And I'm like, we could not use these wells. So the question is, what if we don't? And what would be the backup plan? And what would it cost? Would it cost the same or more? Or, essentially what happens if we say no?
Well, I mean, ultimately, if it's the goal of Recreation Commission and or the town to have better athletic fields, at some point, you'd want to complete the project because that would be, an objective. And so it would just be deferring it to the future. I can't speak as to what the funding mechanisms would be at that point, whether you'd have, would be a capital budget ask at that point. I don't know what would happen to the ARPA funds that have already been allocated to it that are supposed to be consumed by a certain period of time.
Yeah, they'll be gone.
So I don't know if I can completely answer that question.
Yeah.
But I guess this would be more expensive and it would probably be a capital budget ask.
Yeah.
And if I can add a little bit, I've never served on advisory, so I'm not quite as sharp as you
You're the
guys
only
on
one
that.
on this committee that hasn't served on advisory.
Well,
There's
that's a
still
good
time,
thing,
there's still
right?
time, Marion, don't worry.
I think they're still looking for one more member.
They are, actually.
Save me. But no, I think you have to, well, I know you're playing the advisory devil's advocate. I appreciate that for sure. But we can't not finish this project. It will be a loss of so much money already expended if we don't finish it. And
You just described the sunk cost fallacy, by the way.
oh yeah, as I said, I've never served on advisory, but I think we're not going to not finish this project since it's so close at this point. So I'm in favor of approving this plan unless I hear more details that change my mind.
So can I make a motion then?
I was just gonna say, I do think advisory will have a lot of questions and it's gonna be very interested in, just, I mean, I can put my past advisory chair hat on and probably come up with the first 10 questions, but they will have a lot of questions and a lot of
Because this
concerns.
advisory committee is way more fiscally conservative than I am, I'm gonna tell you.
I mean, the questions raised.
Hence, my interest in.
Sure,
what
I
are they
understand.
gonna
And
think?
the questions raised are good ones and relate to how we move forward from here, how we manage our capital projects.
Because really the question that you always have to ask yourself with the sunk costs and the why I ask, what if we say no, is essentially, okay, well, if we stop now, there is this amount of money that we're about to spend on this project as currently planned. And it's like, well, okay, if we stop right now, is that truly the best way to spend that money? Or is there an alternate way to manage these fields? Because essentially there was a goal for let's drill wells, let's get an amount of water. And then it turned out, oh, we didn't have nearly as much water as we wanted. And then it's like, all right, well, now we come up with new plans, got a whole bunch of storage. And now it's like, oh, well, actually that plan was going to cost way more than we expected. And then it's like, all right, well, let's redesign that plan. Okay, well, it's still going to cost more, but maybe not way more than we expected. But ultimately, we're still spending a lot more money than we planned on in order to get a lot less water than we had planned on. So it's like, okay, wait, should we pause here, step back and say, is this really the best way to manage these fields, And if we're confident that, the Recreation Commission has looked into it, and I know that there's a lot of turnover in that commission over the past year. So it's like, that's part of why I'm like, a lot of the recreation stuff, I'm like, we should pause, let the new commission get together, get fresh eyes on everything and figure out, is this really the best way to do things? And I just kind of want to be sure that the fresh eyes have looked at it and decided that, yes, this is in fact the best way forward, or if there has been consideration of some alternate way to manage these fields,
I can share with you that the Recreation Commission has discussed this project almost at every single meeting. I know a lot of things have been tried prior to the formation of this specific commission. My own ignorance, I'm not sure, I'm not aware of any other way of being able to do it this hour. Is there another possible way? I don't know. I can't answer that.
I have two.
I'm not sure if it's
Go ahead.
pertinent, but there's some questions coming up in the meeting chat. Maybe they could just be verbalized.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if anybody who is on Zoom, if you have a question, yeah, please just kind of raise your hand. Because chat, things that are put into Zoom chat are not actually part of the public meeting. It's effectively the same as if two audience members were just whispering to each other. That's not part of the public record.
It's Nora.
All right, so let's do Nora, and then I think a couple other select board members had some comments, but let's start with Nora.
Hi, thank you, Steve. I was just wondering about Jamison Field, if I could have a comment about that. In the 2024 town meeting, significant amount of money was allocated for Jamison Field, and it looks like Deb just said on the chat about 3,000 of that dollar amount has been used. What's the update on Jamison Field from 2024 for the
Yeah,
rec?
so yeah. Thank you, Nora. So the money that was spent most recently on Jameson was to pay for professional services for a surveyor. The Recreation Commission wanted to basically, before spending the money, have a plan and be able to have a layout of the site with the survey. And so that was part of that process. They're right now using those plans to get the estimates and ideas on the design to get the work completed.
Deb, what was the total amount of that appropriation originally?
Yeah, 100,000.
Thank you.
And Dave, so the plan is for that work to happen when?
As soon as possible.
Meaning this fall or
It
next
would
spring?
be similar to the Lily project that we completed late in the year, November, December of 2023. Ideally, you'd like to have that completed in the fall. It makes a much greater chance of having a successful opening day for the utilizing that new field.
But it all depends on the value and what that work is, whether we're going to need to bid that.
Correct. And
You're
I
going to
made
need to
them
factor
work.
that in. It's not happening this November or December based on the need to bid the project. I don't know what project it entails. If there's plans, specifications, and the value.
So there's that's being discussed.
Being the end of October, it's not
they-
likely to happen this fall.
They understand what the dollar amounts are and what the requirements are to go out to bid. And so they're working with, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and speak out of turn, but they're working with the youth organization to see how they can get something done this fall. Similar to what they did
If it's
with.
an expenditure of public funds, it needs to follow the state procurement law.
Understood. Similar to what they did in the fall of 2023, where there was a split of money spent between the two organizations.
Any of the public funds that may be expended need to follow state procurement law.
Understood.
So can I make my motion?
Not yet.
Well, I was going to make two comments, but
No, you should comment first
one
before
is,
any
I think
motions.
we've covered almost all recreation. I'm thinking, we're redoing the tennis courts and pickleball. We're pretty knowledgeable about the baseball field because they've had different versions of that. We've gone through with that. And I know work had been done to Pheasant, and Pheasant, in my view, seems to be in pretty decent shape. We haven't talked about Pheasant tonight. I'm sure there's things that can be done there. So Laurel is the other big one. So in some ways, when you ask about are there other projects that we're foregoing, we've covered most of the major recreations. We're doing a lot right now. If you include the tennis courts and everything else, we're doing pretty many things. My other point is, I'm wondering now, based on Dan's point, would it make sense for us to motion be reconsidered and wait until advisory meets and vote after advisory? I don't know if that delays, we would then meet the following week. But in some ways, I'd like to hear what advisory committee says, including their challenges, before we vote. So I don't know if that's possible or not.
So so.
It's possible. It sounds like the timeline would be tight, right?
Yeah.
We're essentially
Well, we
Every-
could have a meeting that night with them if we wanted to. I know
Deb
it's
has
an
a
added
comment.
meeting.
Deb, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out too, I know you were talking about maybe postponing this or not doing it now. We have committed to use the ARPA funds for this project, and that money has to be spent by December of 2026. So if you don't move on with this project, you could lose $107,000.
December of 26 or December of 25?
26.
So,
It had,
okay.
yeah.
That's still a ways off.
Had
But it
we
needs to be
committed
spent
to
on
the
that
24th,
starting
I
with-
think.
Yeah, it has to be spent on, it's gotta be spent on
To
this.
be spent on,
So-
It has to be spent on this.
Yep,
or something that passes the straight face test that
it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I would say presumably if some alternate strategy for managing / rebuilding this field were come up with, that the ARPA funding would probably still qualify for it. So, I mean, I don't know about waiting for advisory. Because if advisory decides that they want to stop this for some reason, they can do it without us anyways, right? They can just vote no on it, right?
They can. I would just be, as I said, I think they're going to have an interesting conversation about it. I'd be interested, along the lines Jeff said, I'd be interested in
I
hearing
would think
that.
that they need our input. And we ought to be leaders. We're the chief executive officers of the town. This is clearly a project in the public interest, in the interest of all the citizens to have good recreation facilities. We're told that it's potentially going to delay the project and maybe even make it more expensive if we don't act now. There's no downside to acting now, because if advisory has a different opinion, they'll vote the way they want to vote. Our vote doesn't preclude them from doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
But it does allow us to be the leaders that we're elected to be.
I disagree, Paul. No leader would make a decision like this without talking to their CFO. So we are the leaders, but we would need to get the input from all the different entities, including advisory, before we decide, in my view.
Well, I think we need to recall that the town voted down the turf fields and the reason they voted it down is that they really wanted grass fields instead. So, in a way, this project is trying to respond to what the town said they want at town meeting. So I just want to make sure we don't forget that.
Yeah. So let's say that we approve this and then advisory approves it next Wednesday. Essentially, like how quickly does the work begin after Wednesday?
It sounds like to me, the first thing, there's a couple things they could do immediately. One is the operations manager would start marking out where the conduits and digging would take place. That would happen within a week. Materials would start to be ordered, mobilization plan, scheduling a meeting with Concom. We've been in regular communication. He actually walked our site this week. Couldn't do anything officially, but we're talking every week.
Yeah.
Until there's one.
Yeah, so we would be delaying the project by a week by waiting another week, probably. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I'm of two minds of it, and it's, my line of questioning was mostly just to sort of confirm that there isn't a reasonable backup plan, that if we ultimately say no to this, it's not like there is some alternate plan that some group of people feel is a wiser approach that Recreation Commission could implement instead of this. We're not choosing between two plans, right? We're choosing between this or effectively nothing at this point and basically going back to the drawing board. And I don't know that reasonably that there is enough time to go back to the drawing board on it, I just kind of felt the need to question my way through that and make sure that publicly it was made clear what it is that we are giving up. Most importantly, that some of those future capital projects like the field house and, one or more of the future Jameson Field projects probably could have been funded by the revolving fund, but instead are now going to be funded by the taxpayers. That's just.
We're donors.
Yes, we're donors.
Yeah.
But just putting that out in the open so that everybody recognizes that this is not free money that we're working with, even though there was a windfall, it's like that money could have been used for something else and now it's going to be used for this instead. I guess I feel some degree of dismay for the way that this project has turned out, and it's not the fault of anybody in particular. It's just that the water didn't come out the way that we wanted and the bids didn't come in as low as we wanted, and we've just kept marching forward. And I just wanted to make sure that we haven't had our blinders on just because this was the goal that we set at the beginning. But we might be at a place where it's too late to go back and rethink the entire thing because, again, we are on a timeline, at least with the ARPA funds, if nothing else. So I would be inclined to vote on it, but I know Paul wants to.
I'd probably have to abstain tonight.
Yeah,
So can I make a motion?
sure.
I made some changes in the proposed motion that was in our packet. Move to approve appropriation spending an additional $132,600 from the Recreation Revolving Fund beyond the $150,000 fiscal year 96 budget limit as a one-time event for the purposes of the irrigation project at Laurel. I've taken out the word completing the project because I don't want to limit this if it doesn't get into the end zone and just gets it to the first yard line. I don't want them to not be able to spend the money. And I do want to make it clear that this is a one-time event, that we don't want to see the Recreation Commission coming back and saying, oh, we still have more money here and we want to spend more money on something else. That we really should stick to the limits voted by town meeting. And it's just the compelling nature of this request that I'm supporting it, and I hope the rest of the board supports it. So I've added those two pieces to the motion. That's the motion.
Can I just amend one thing? You said fiscal 96. I don't know if you were talking about 1996 or 2096, but neither of those is accurate.
Sorry, 26. Did I really say that?
You said fiscal 96. Yeah.
But it's,
Good catch.
we knew what you meant.
It's been moved.
Yeah, I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All right. Paul,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
Jeff,
Well, I'm with Dan. I think I'm going to abstain because I think I support this, but I would like to hear what advisory says before I vote. So I'm going to abstain.
Dan.
I'm with Jeff. I also support the project, but, wanted to get more information, so I'm also going to abstain.
I hate you all.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
I know, right? I will vote aye. All right, so 3-0-2, motion carries. Good luck with advisory.
Yeah.
I'll queue up the next one. The town wrote a $90,000 check to Eversource for the power of the site. It's already been spent.
Oh,
So typical to any other poles that have to be set that aren't on the street. On the street, normally you'd give them right a pole. Because this is onto a piece of property, they need access to the pole and the transformer. So both of those documents are in there for you to execute for the license. And I think the motion should include both. It's not written like that in the agenda.
Yeah, there's two separate licenses, one for the transformer, one for the poles.
Move approval of both licenses, the transformer and the poles.
yeah, I second.
You gotta have power to run these things.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
That's good because the poles are already there.
I mean,
The check's already written.
whatever,
Thank
Yeah.
you for making me go to my word.
whatever.
In the ground?
Yeah. 2 of 3. One laying on the ground.
Um,
I don't know.
alrighty. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
And-
Thanks, Sean.
Sorry for the grilling.
No, it's. Be kinder than.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Dave? Excuse me, keep going.
All right, next item is consideration of save money with clean heat letter, and we have Amelia Landau for that.
You may notice that we have a bunch of people here. So I was approached by,
Can you actually come up to the table, just because this is the mic for anybody that's on Zoom, so the clip.
so I was approached by our local node of the Citizen Action Group, 350.org, Upper Charles Climate Action, which we have some representatives from here today. Raise your hand if you do live in Sherborn, if you're a Sherborn resident. And they approached me because they've been working on a legislative campaign for a packet of 5 bills that are currently going through mostly going through the joint House Senate Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy Committee in the State House right now. They've been writing letters, calling representatives, attending meetings and testifying, but to engage democracy on all levels, they're also here tonight locally, as well as going to the Dover and Holliston select boards with similar requests for signatures of letters of support for these pieces of legislation. So because 3 of the 5 bills are really only as effective as our municipal ability to, implement them or take advantage of them, then I wanted to present them to you tonight and see if you would be willing to sign this letter of support. So, in your packet, you do have the summaries. As to save us all some time, I'm just going to briefly go over the basic gist of each of the 5 bills. The first is a bill proposing some reforms to the Mass Save program, which has been useful in getting both residents and the municipality savings on energy due to increased energy efficiency improvements. This would give all residents access to a full net zero audit, which would go steps beyond just energy efficiency improvements into recommending certain technologies such as heat pumps and solar panels for residents to be able to fully electrify their homes. And these would also include some regulations that would expand what technologies are recommended or qualify for rebates under Mass Save to make it more affordable, not only for residents, but also for municipal projects, which we use those incentives for, large, piece of equipment and things like that. Number 2 is in response to the fact that electrification is going to be raising the actual electricity uses and therefore the cost of specific electricity burden. The proposed legislation would allow towns to do something called Z metering. Fancy new phrase, but it's basically something that private corporations and private residences and even nonprofits can already do by transferring solar credits from arrays on their properties to other, entities' energy bills. So through the utility, it would basically allow for the town to, if we owned a solar array on a building or town property, to then reallocate the net metering credits that are generated from those properties to others, like for example residents, or as a energy relief program or things like that. This is particularly useful in response to some of the strife that we've had over, residents seeing solar projects go up in their community, but not actually reaping the benefits from that. This would ensure that it's not just that there's a nebulous amount of cash flow being made from solar developments, but that there is an avenue for the town to specifically redirect it towards residents, especially for schools, which is related to number 4. But before we get there, number 3 is basically in response to the fact that natural gas utilities have the basically legislative right to once they've gotten approval to rip up streets somewhere, they can just use that same historic approval to do it as long as they have a claim there. And that creates inefficiencies with town spending, because you can, repave a road and then the company has, basically all legal rights to go and rip up the road and replace pipeline. Furthermore, companies actually do turn 9% return on investment for their decisions to replace pipeline instead of to repair pipeline, which costs over, what was the number, 30 times more, or whatever, $3 million to
It costs $3 million a mile to put in a new gas pipeline. This particular bill doesn't really affect Sherborn because there is no natural gas. I mean, it also works for Hoddesdon.
Yes.
There's a lot of natural gas in Hoddesdon. This one is not particularly relevant to Sherborn, but just so you know, for interest, when a gas utility like Eversource or National Grid cars up the road and puts a new pipe in, they charge you, the ratepayers, if you were gas ratepayers, $3 million per mile. Repairing that pipe costs $100,000 per mile.
This is especially.
David, do you just want to identify yourself so that?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. My name is David Green. I live in Dover. Sorry, guys. We share a high school.
I was just there today.
And just a bit of background. I'm a degree in physics and an MBA, and so I'm both an energy geek and a finance nerd at the same time.
They can relate.
I decarbonized my own house. It had net zero emissions and net zero bills. I pay nothing to Eversource. We're on heating oil like most of the houses in Sherborn as well. So I pay nothing for heating oil anymore. I pay nothing for electricity anymore because I have solar panels on my roof, and solar panels power heat pumps, and they provide all the heat for my house. After that, I wrote 3 books sharing the good news about how to decarbonize and save money. That I give those away for free. During COVID, I started doing webinars. Thousands of people have seen them. Some of the members of UCC here helped me with that very first webinar, which was so popular, I just kept on doing it. And so basically, I'm an energy geek and a finance nerd. I'm retired. I don't sell solar panels, I don't sell heat pumps. And I've just been advising Amelia on the plans she's interested in for saving money for the town of Sherborn and for the residents of Sherborn, and also the Save Money with People campaign, which is these 5 bills put together, which you heard the first 3. This one on it's called Municipal Voices is really about gas utilities. It isn't as relevant to Sherborn. The others I think are more relevant. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. The thing that this would give the municipality the right to do is to go to the DPU if we wanted to dispute any of these claims, which was, not something a municipality was previously empowered to do. So that, it's money saving, but also just like more like small town autonomy. Bill number 4 is mostly a labor bill, but it does make some, advocate for more subsidies for school decarbonization, as well as school solar. Solar on school buildings is, popular worldwide just because school buildings tend to be some of the largest buildings owned by municipalities. And so this would make it a little bit more fiscally feasible to do. And again, any of the net metering credits that were generated by those large arrays that weren't used on-site load for the buildings could then, through the second bill, be Z-metered off to other, uses. And then finally, number 5 concerns the Climate Bank, which is extant, an extant organization, and it was originally conceived of via executive order with a $50 million grant. But this is legislation that would actually create it into law, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just an alternative way to finance electrification projects and things like that for residents and entities that is trying to create a more favorable financial situation for those who understand the, risk of these, important projects. So that's a summary of all 5 bills. And I can understand that since some of them are more, influential over town business than others, we can, discuss what, if you feel like signing on to all 5, if you feel like signing on to specific ones, if you challenge any of the specific wording in the letter of support. I made it intentionally generic so that if you have any feedback, we can make it more specific. But yeah, that's the deal.
So Dan, you spent some time talking to her, so maybe you should take the lead here.
Sure, happy to. So I was the one who wanted to pull this from 2 weeks ago to have a little more time to consider. And I had, I think on Tuesday, a terrific conversation with Amelia and with David Green. Learned a ton and kind of dug into some of the more specifics about what each of these different pieces of legislation do. Read the legislation and dug in. And Amelia was a terrific resource. David was a really great resource. So here's the way I'm thinking about this. Seems to me there's sort of just a threshold question of under what circumstances does the town want to take a position on issues that are not direct Sherborn issues, but indirect Sherborn issues. I probably defer to the 4 of you who've had much more experience with that than I have of where this lands. But if we are going to do a letter endorsing, by my analysis, the 1st, 2nd, and 5th pretty directly, relatively directly affect Sherborn. As David said, the 3rd is really about gas utilities and what gas utilities can do, and that doesn't seem super important for Sherborn. And while I'm sure members of the legislature would appreciate our thoughts on that, we don't typically comment on, say, tax legislation that only indirectly affects folks in Sherborn. And 4, I had some concerns about as well. It's a great idea to help schools get there, but it felt to me like it was the state. They'd set up a new office. They'd send folks into every school, higher education and primary and secondary school to do energy analysis, which seems like a good thing. And then I think there'd be some mandates that they make some of the recommended changes. And I didn't see a lot in there about funding. So it just seems complicated and like, boy, I would want to know more about the funding and how is that all going to work and who's going to pay for what for me. So that was the way I was thinking about it, recognizing that at town meeting 3 years ago, we as a town voted that we're facing a climate emergency. So that, maybe we get over the threshold issue, but for me, I would prefer to do a selection of these rather than all, just to try to preserve some sense of that we're offering our advice to the legislature on items that pretty directly affect town of Sherborn and residents here. So others may have a very different perspective, open to hearing different ways of thinking about it, but that's what I came to after really good conversation with Amelia and David.
My thinking is similar to that, but I didn't really focus on any of the individual language because the House and the Senate are going to, manipulate this. So I viewed this as just a directional letter. And I viewed only 2 people as being the audience, which is James Arena DeRosa and Becca Roush, to let them know that Sherborn, these are going to be reworded and reworked, and maybe there won't be 5, there'll be 3. I think we're micromanaging is my sense. So I think from my perspective, we're sending a directional message. We do vote on these. I don't see the point on picking 3. I would vote to support all 5 only because it may not end up being 5. It might be a combined, but I think we're micromanaging. I think if we wanted to let our 2 representatives in the House and the Senate know that we're supportive of things, just like we did by changing our building code to the Sustainability Plus code or whatever we ended up doing. And I don't view the specifics as being worth debating because, it's going to be very different when it comes out of the House. So I see it as just letting them know that we're a constituency that they can count on to.
I mean, we may be endorsing some things that are either irrelevant for the town or that
Yeah,
actually,
whoops,
on
yeah.
reflection, would actually be maybe harmful or
Yeah,
expensive for
it could
people in
very
town.
well be. I don't think we know enough, I guess I'd say.
I
Can
mean,
you
these are
expound
all
on-
separately filed bills, right? These are not all aggregated in one bill. These are separate bills.
Yes, they're separately filed, and there is some overlap, but most of them are sponsored by different representatives. The only one sponsored by Roush is number 4.
Can you expound on your comment about how some of this could actually be more expensive for residents?
So, you know, again, reading legislative language is always challenging. And so I want to say this, you know, humbly and carefully. My read of number 4 is it's a huge unfunded mandate. The state will come and tell schools, here are a set of energy improvements you can make, which would be great, things that probably the schools should do, and would say, do it, but by the way, there's no money for doing it, so figure it out. And I don't know, Sean left, I don't know how Sean would feel about folks coming and telling us, here are the things that, or the folks at DS, here are the things you need to do. It's gonna cost you $3 million, do it, figure it out. You know, and I take your point, Jeff, that, you know, the language is gonna change. I think my understanding from David is the governor has a bill that encompasses a lot of these items. And I don't know, I mean, maybe there'd be a way to, and again, this is probably micromanaging, but isn't an issue worth quite all this time, but, you know, maybe the language of the letter could just pick up on your point and have the language of the letter be a little more just supportive of the direction.
Yeah,
rather
that's
than
a
the
good-
specifics. That might be a way to handle it.
We added the auditorium at Pine Hill, you know, after the fact.
Yeah.
So I have a bunch of comments. The first is that, speaking as a lawyer, I think cities and towns of the Commonwealth should stick to the business of cities and towns. And I've sat through meetings where there have been requests to vote to oppose the war in Afghanistan, for example. I've listened to debates about wars in Gaza and Ukraine, all this kind of stuff, that people feel they want votes from boards of selectmen. And as a municipal lawyer, we're created to do specific things like manage the community and look at municipal issues. So in general, I advise anybody who asks that we ought to stick to municipal issues and not wander off into things that are not within our specific jurisdiction. Like, for example, Bill number 4 talks about the schools. By law, the school committee runs the schools. And for me to sit here and say, I'm going to vote on something that's going to determine what the schools do is wrong. If the schools came to us and said, would we support the schools in an effort that they want to do, I'd be happy to support the schools. But I don't see them asking for this. And so why should we, the Board of Selectmen, go outside of our jurisdiction, our legal jurisdiction, and get involved with a school matter, essentially? There are other things of concern. There's statements that there's no natural gas and no pipelines issues in this town. That couldn't be further from the truth. There's a major pipeline running through the town.
Oh, sure.
It runs alongside my property, and it goes down to the
Town forest.
to the river
And town forest.
and town forest.
And Ward Lane, my neighborhood.
And in the Charles River, I've had this constant battle with Algonquin because they have to electrically charge the pipeline. to prevent corrosion, and they discharge the electric field into the Charles River. And I've argued with them endlessly. The charge is real, it's substantial. If there's a boater in a metal boat with a pacemaker, it would stop the pacemaker. And there's no warnings. It's a powerful current. And they're using the Charles River as essentially a grounding device, as opposed to building a grounding device on solid ground. So there's all kinds of things going on with pipelines in Sherborn. So it's not true that that would be an irrelevant issue for us. But how that would play out, if that pipeline was shut down, my concern isn't that there's millions of gallons of gas going through Sherborn. It's what is the effect if that pipeline got shut down? How does it affect the state's economy? How does it affect the use of energy throughout Massachusetts?
I will highlight that this legislation is made with the decarbonization goals set by the state in mind. So the state set for themselves a goal of net zero by 2050. And there are, in terms of that commitment, that allows for some fossil fuel usage as long as it is counteracted by other methods of carbon capture and sequestration. And so this bill is trying to take into account that a lot of natural gas infrastructure will have to downsize, basically, or go out of commission. And so while it's not our job to really reflect on how is this going to affect the state economy, it is something that state level lawmakers are trying to take into account. And you might see in the text of the one pager there, it mentions that they're trying to basically create a system for these gas utilities to create long-term plans to coordinate with municipalities so that their ratepayers aren't wasting money, but also they're not wasting money while they're trying to downsize.
Well, they're also federally regulated.
Correct.
And anytime I try to do anything with them, they throw that in my face. That I don't know what the statute would really do as far as ripping up the streets are concerned. Almost every community I know has bans on digging up streets that have just been freshly paved. But the reality is they dig up the streets because somebody wants energy. And so if a new business is opening or the new housing development takes place on Coolidge Street, they have to dig up the street. And if we say no, is the building going to sit there until we say yes? We end up having to say yes. It's not practical for the utilities to develop a 4-year plan. It's the private citizens who are building houses, who are building businesses, who are building the economy.
I mean, it doesn't require us to say no. I think the bigger emphasis of the legislation is that if there is reason for us to say no, for example, if they're, expending, money to replace the pipeline instead of just simply repair it, which would suffice in most cases, when they're not laying down new pipe to, for your example, like new residences or businesses. So I don't think that the scope of the legislation is trying to prevent the, laying new natural gas pipeline, because it's still within the right of the municipality to say yeah, go ahead. It's just giving a mechanism so that if the municipality had a situation they wanted to dispute to limit costs, or, waste basically, they would actually, we would be availed to do so by the DPU and not just, have to let the utility do whatever.
But again, the DPU's powers are limited because you got the federal government out there. And at one point when I told them I wanted the anodes that they use to discharge electricity into the river to move off my property, I own to the midline of the Charles River. And I said, get it off my half of the Charles River. And they were like, well, we could take it by eminent domain. And we have that authority under federal law, blah, 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 blah. And we're providing the nation the means to survive and all this kind of stuff. It's not just a state issue. The state law, I'm interested in the issue. I just would need to know a lot more about how it could be used to stop some of the craziness that I've seen.
So efficacy basically is your concern. So even if this were to go through, you don't think it would be as effective or relevant to Sherborn?
I don't see how an act of Massachusetts can address an interstate pipeline where there's hundreds of miles, maybe thousands of miles. This is like our trying to regulate railroads or trying to regulate telephones.
So are you saying that you don't support the effort?
I'm saying I'd like to see more on how this.
But you're not legislating right now, right? That's not the point here, is that we're not legislating. And the specifics of this legislation are less important than the ultimate, the spirit of it, right? Right now, you're getting very bogged down in the letter of this legislation. And I find it's unclear to me, do you not actually even support the goal? Or are you simply saying that you don't think the way that it's written, it's going to accomplish anything?
I was addressing the comment that it wasn't relevant to us because we don't have any gas pipelines.
Okay, you went
And
really way off on a tangent then.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
great.
trying to say.
David, please.
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments, Mr. Durensis. First on FERC, the federal oversight of interstate gas pipelines, you're absolutely right. This authority gives no authority to the town to interfere with the federal government's right to build gas transmission pipelines across state lines. They're completely separate. I wasn't talking about that. And when I made my comment that municipal gas pipelines in streets are not really relevant to Sherborn, is because there's no municipal streets with gas pipelines in them in Sherborn, apart from some very small areas around the eastern town where they're fed by other towns' gas supply. But in general, Sherborn does not have streets with gas pipelines running underneath them like Holliston does, Natick does, Needham does, Boston does. That was the purpose of my point. Second, I'd like to address your bigger issue, which is this the town's domain? Well, these bills combined will cut the average homeowner's bills, utility bills for heating and electricity combined, by $2,500 every year. Now, if I was here to propose a $2,500 property tax assessment every year, I think you would consider that town business. So I think you have to consider cutting all your residents' bills, utility bills, by $2,500 each and every year to be town business, in my opinion.
Good points.
Mary?
I wish I had done what Dan had done, because there's not enough information here to make a good decision. And I didn't have the time to go and read the bills, and I would have needed guidance anyway if I had. But my first appraisal of all of these, never mind the gas pipelines, I'm agnostic on that. But the others, I'm looking here for, okay, what's new? Okay, what's new? We already have Mass Save. we know that solar and heat pumps save energy, that we're told again and again in these summaries, and lower costs. That's not new. We already know that we can have Mass Save and come and do an assessment on our home. And having done that, I know they give you recommendations on what you could do, who are contractors that might do it. I'm just looking for something really new here. The one thing I see that, and we know we want solar on the schools. And Dan, you can correct me because you've read this stuff and you know much more, but the climate bank, I thought looked like a new idea. And cheap financing to towns and homeowners to install solar or geothermal or whatever. That sounds great. I'm not sure where the money would come from to provide the cheap financing, but in general, that's good. I mean, not knowing enough of the details, I can't vote to, endorse or not endorse any of these, but I think it is worth, and I should say, I think our representatives in the House and Senate already know that we want to be as green a town as we can be. We could reinforce that with the letter. But for these specific bills, I can't quite see what's new enough to get excited about, other than the gas pipeline.
I just want to tell a little story about something I heard that happened down in Mendon. So Mendon has a regional school system. It's Mendon Upton. And a few years ago, they put solar panels on their high school and on the canopy over the parking lot of the high school to generate electricity for the schools. Well, they generate so much electricity that they can't use it all. They have an excess. And what happens to these electricity credits is that the Eversource, their power company, keeps them. So what's new about these bills is that now we can take control of those energy credits and use them for something else, is what you were getting at, David. Would it be, $1,000? Well, in Mendon Upton, it's to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars that the town is not getting from this extra power capacity that they have.
I wasn't aware of that.
So I think that is a new thing. Power, from solar energy, we can generate it, and if there's extra, it can go to the people of the town, or we could sell it and take that money to use for the schools.
And may I say something as well?
Yeah, before you both do, we had a comment, I don't know if you saw that. You need to identify yourself before you speak.
Oh, okay. So Donna Trainer, 97 Washington Street.
Okay, Mary Ann Morse, 16 Morse Road. I'd like to share a story. This happened in late September on my street, Morse Road. There was a dubious solar installer company going door to door, trying to sell their services because the federal tax credits on solar end at the end of this year. And so many of my neighbors were very interested in this company. And I knew that this company was not trustworthy. And so I sent out an email to everyone on my street urging them to contact a company called Energy Sage, which vets solar contractors and will recommend a particular solar contractor. Now, what's new in these bills? The bill that is to reform Mass Save is going to completely reconfigure Mass Save. Mass Save right now does not advise people on solar installations. And so people are kind of flying blind out there in terms of, what company can they trust? And if we reform Mass Save the way this bill is laid out, Mass Save will be supplying people with vetted contractors for solar, if their home is suitable for solar. So David, if you want to add to that, please do.
No, that's exactly right. You asked for what's new. That is one example of what's new, is that Mass Save will now be recommending solar where it's cost effective for the homeowner, and then recommending a vetted list of contractors for solar panels, much as today it does for insulation. If any of you use Mass Save for insulation, you know they come with a list of contractors that are vetted by the Mass Save program. That's the first point. On the second point that Donna made, that process of transferring excess net metering credits from one person to another person is called Z metering. And right now, towns are banned from Z metering. Private individuals can do it. I do it from one house I own to another house I own. Churches can do it from the church roof to members of the congregation. And companies like Nexamp, if you've heard of them, build big arrays somewhere in Massachusetts and Z-meter the credits to anyone who signs up for it. But towns are banned from doing it.
I didn't know that.
Well, right. But in this bill, that ban is removed.
I see.
Allowing towns, so for instance, if Dover and Sherborn were to get together and build solar panel arrays on the high school, then those solar credits that are in excess of what the school actually uses could be transferred to other residents of town. And the current cost of putting solar panels on schools is about 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Okay, per kilowatt hour is what you pay Eversource and National Grid. You pay about 35 cents a kilowatt hour. You can make it on your own roof for 10 cents. Now, if you transfer that credit to residents of your town, you'll cut their bills by 70%. For the average homeowner in Massachusetts, that's $1,000 a year in savings on the electric bill. Add a heat pump and that replaces your gas furnace, it's now $2,500 in savings each and every year. And that is what I do think this is town business, because you have electricity bills for the schools, even though it's in the regional school district, and the town buildings like this one, and all your residents who you are elected to support have those bills too. So I think this is squarely in the town's business.
Sure, yeah, I get it. That's good. I didn't know that. I knew that individual homeowners do get their bill discounted if they put solar on their roof.
Yeah.
Like towns doing. So anyway, I guess, where are we now? Where am I now? That's intriguing. Basically, I want to know a lot more.
I guess my general position on this is that, I guess for me, and this might be just a overly simplified view of the situation, but to me, the declaration of a climate change emergency that the town voted for a few years ago, to me, basically gives us political cover to do things like this. Like that was the reason for it, right? And I don't believe that it was just paying lip service to climate change. And the declaration specifically said that the town should take action, where technologically and or financially feasible. And I don't know, it bugs me when I know that people supported that and they voted for the declaration, but now years later, when things start coming up, that would be the exact type of thing that declaration would require us to support. Now people are backpedaling and saying, "Oh, well, I didn't really mean that," and like for example, the energy code thing from a couple of years ago, when people are like, "Oh, yes, I supported the climate change emergency and I support the idea of more efficient building," but not at the expense of, not at the cost of consumer choice. No, that would be going too far. It's like, that's preposterous to me, right? And so this is this isn't even difficult. This is a pretty easy thing, right? It's not something that to me seems like is likely to be a significant cost or burden to the town, with the potential exception of if we support the school having projects that, put solar panels on the roof, for example. there might be a cost associated with that, right? But to me, it doesn't sound like it's a mandate that says, okay, if we say this, now the schools are required to put a $3 million solar project on the roof,
I mean,
right?
subject to Jeff's point that the words are gonna change. The version of the bill that was introduced said that schools shall do what's recommended, but, you know, that probably isn't what's gonna be in the final legislation.
Yeah, and then to Paul's point of, it's, not our place to get in the business of the schools. Absolutely, it's our place to get into the business of the schools, right? The school committee does not rule the school with an iron fist. It's a collaboration between 3 legal entities, the town of Sherborn, the town of Dover, and the regional school committee, right? Every time the schools want to do some sort of a major project, they have to come and get approval from the other towns, and we have to pay for it, right? So everything is a collaboration, right? And so to me, the declaration of a climate change emergency and we shall take, action where technologically feasible. I mean, this is a pretty easy thing to be like, look, I am not a lawyer and I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details because I'm going to trust our state representatives to do all of that, right? I'm just saying, hey, look, I support in spirit what these 5 bills are promoting. And the entire town of Sherborn declared that it supports this type of thing. So
I think it's for what I said too, because I actually don't support any of these individuals. At Pine Hill School, there's air handlers on the entire roof. You couldn't put much solar panels up there. So I don't want to make it be
A mandate.
I don't want to make it be this specific. I think that's what you're saying, and what Dan's saying too, is that conceptually, these are directionally what we want to consider, but I don't support the individual language of any one of these. I wouldn't vote in favor of any one of these individual ones. I just want to provide a directional comment. Is that different than what you're saying?
I mean, I think it's sort of in spirit the same as what I'm saying, although the letter that we are being asked to, does actually specify each of these bills.
Yeah, I know it does.
But still, it's like these bills, it's like.
Change that.
So I'd be
We're
happy
discussing up here right now. We'll let you know when we're ready to talk to the floor.
if the sense of the board is want to send a general letter of support for these kinds of initiatives, I'm sure Amelia could draft that. I'd be happy to, get with Amelia and put something together, for everybody to consider. I think it's interesting that of these bills, of these 5, Becca Roush is a co-sponsor of 1. James Arena DeRosa is not a co-sponsor of any at this point.
I think he's
He's
co-sponsoring all of them.
Yes.
Is he?
Yeah, I went to his
Okay, good, okay. So then I just have I pulled down the copies of the bill as they were on the state's website, and it didn't indicate that. So that's really helpful. That's really helpful to know. I mean, the challenge for me is that, 350 Mass said, here are the things you do if you're green, and maybe they're right, and maybe there's a somewhat different set of things that we would do if we were green. But, that takes some thought and analysis, and, this may not be for Sherborn exactly the right set of, so that's my thing.
So how about a compromise because you were very persuasive, Steve. How about 1, 2, 3, and 5?
I'm not voting for any individual ones. I'm voting at a higher level. But that's okay, you can make the motion.
I'm okay with that too.
I don't feel any of these are really implementable, to be honest with you.
I mean,
But I like the idea of giving the citizens to be able to put, a big solar panel, municipally owned solar panel, and transfer the credits to citizens, and things like that. I'd like to benefit the.
I don't know that that's feasible. I don't know anything about it. I think we're way out of you just said the towns were we have no idea what the implications of how that would be worked. I just think it's too detailed.
I would be in favor of weighing in to both Becca Roush and James Arena DeRosa, that we are supportive of all initiatives that in their judgment will benefit towns and benefit the climate.
Without mentioning any particular.
Yeah, I mean, and to the extent that they decide to sponsor one or another, I leave it up to their judgment, I think.
Their judgment in all their negotiations with all their peers, yes.
Exactly, because they're the ones who are gonna do the work.
Yeah, that's.
And I would like to support them in this, for sure. But yeah, I don't feel competent to analyze the bill or get into the weeds on this. So, but the spirit has been discussed, I'm sure, in the Energy and Sustainability Committee and by the Sustainability Coordinator. And I think we can trust the fact that they think this is a good idea. Maybe with the exception of the gas pipeline, which I don't understand.
Maybe a good
at all.
idea,
Just not relevant.
Not relevant.
But, tell our representatives that to the extent that they can promote these in the House and Senate, I mean, we could tell them that they're authorized to say on our behalf, for example, off the top of my head, that Sherborn is supportive of all initiatives that make it easier for towns to lower carbon emissions and incidentally save money while doing so.
I certainly agree with the principle, yeah. So if that's.
We like mom and apple pie pretty well too.
Yeah, but sometimes reminding people that mom and apple pie are good is valuable.
So you were taking pretty good notes. Do you think, I'm wondering, what do you think having Dan sort of draft?
And I'm happy to work with him. Yeah.
Something that we could then.
So if you're gonna draft it, I like the way Stephen put it, that town meeting voted.
Yeah, that's a good point to me.
This principle,
Mm-hmm.
and in carrying out that principle, we do what Marion just said.
Tom Trainer, 97 Washington Street. Also a member of the Energy and Sustainability Committee. You know, I'd like to throw out something here that hasn't been brought up. You know, our state is really a leader in the country for initiatives like this. And our town, you know, has recently re-upped with the Green Communities Initiative within the state. So our town, within 350 municipalities, is amongst a leader cohort. You know, I'd ask you to contrast what you're hearing from Washington, D.C. There are, I don't even want to use the word leaders, but there are people in the federal government that reject that climate change is happening. And I just point that out because it's really up to the state and the towns to do anything to improve this very difficult direction we're heading into. So I would just like to support, you know, what I think I hear is a compromise for you to come up with some kind of language to send it to our legislature and ask them to put more priority on these important areas. Thanks.
Well, just on the issue of climate change, I was reading an article about Iceland, and for the first time ever, they are finding mosquitoes on Iceland.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
really?
Iceland.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Debbie DeMauro, Hollis Street. I just want to reiterate what Mr. Trainer said and Mr. Sy. It's not like we're locked into something. This is showing our support for these bills that have been raked over for many months or years, I think, those bills. So, and I don't think it's gonna lock us into what, Mr., I don't even know how to say your last name, Seichel? Sickle.
Yeah, thanks.
I understand your concern, and I appreciate having you on this board and being as concerned as you are, but I think that this is just like I don't want to say a first step or a last step, but it's closer to the last step of making it very apparent that something needs to be done. And like Paul said, we are, or no, it was Mr. Trainer, Massachusetts is a leader. And we'll be paying the consequences of that very shortly with this new, anyways, this new guy, I hesitate to say president. Anyways, I just hope that you would get the, I don't even know what to say, just, it's not like, just read it and say, oh, I have all these questions, but I'm gonna sign it. It's not a done deal the way it is, I don't think. I think it's gonna be changed. But I think to show your support to the State House and the legislature that we support it.
Mhm.
We've been a green community for a couple of decades now, right? Since 2000.
Yeah, I understand giving them the ammunition that they need to
Right.
take it to the, yeah.
I'm Barbara Keogh from Great Rock Rose, and Becca Roche and DeRosa have been really front and center on this, really leading the legislature. And the other thing is, we're all in this together. We're not just little Sherborn anymore. We've got to be part of the whole.
Good point.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I've made my position clear, which is essentially that I would support as much of a letter of support as you guys would be comfortable with. Again, my position is that all we really need to do is demonstrate that we support the spirit and the aim of these 5 pieces of legislation. We're not endorsing all of the specific language down to the single word of shall versus should. We're just saying, look, we believe that these 5 pieces of legislation have a noble aim and are pointed in the right direction, and we support whatever you think is necessary to make them happen. And we are supported by the town's declaration of a climate change emergency. I fully respect your opinions all. If you don't feel comfortable with that and you want to soften it, that's also fine with me. But I also don't think that that we're committing to something that is either egregious or has sort of hidden pitfalls. And again, I recognize that we haven't looked through everything, but I think that we have an entire group of people here who probably have. I think the Energy and Sustainability Committee has looked and discussed this. Amelia obviously has looked into this. And so there are a bunch of people that I do trust on these matters who have vetted it and whose opinion I'm gonna fall back on. I don't feel like again, this is just because I'm not a lawyer. I don't feel the need to personally go through word for word and figure out, do I personally support this exactly as written or not? I'm just like, oh yeah, no, the aim of it seems good. And so I support it. And that's where I'm coming at it.
Well, I think that's where we're coming, I agree with what you just said, and I think that's where we're coming out. We're gonna do a letter that supports the intent of these, not necessarily every word, not necessarily the word shall. We don't need to say that in the letter, but I think we're pretty much on the same page.
Okay. So then,
Yeah, we delegated it to Dan.
should we have Dan and Amelia, you guys can work on a
Sure.
new letter that has language that
Sure.
everyone will support?
Sure.
Great. All right, awesome.
All right, thanks. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Amelia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go to sleep.
So Brian's been waiting patiently, I think.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Oh boy. All right. Item 7, consideration of a memorandum of understanding between the town of Sherborn, the Sherborn Board of Library Trustees, and the Sherborn Historical Society for preparation of space to be occupied in the Sherborn Library. And
Yeah, I'll give you a summary. This is all related to moving the Sherborn Historical Society to the old basement, or a portion of the old basement in the Sherborn Public Library. As you know, some ARPA funds were dedicated for the design, and last town meeting appropriated funds towards the construction. The balance of the construction would be funded by the Sherborn Historical Society through donations. We've discussed the nature of this project and what documents should be in place, and town council has recommended an MOU be in place for the balance of the design and through construction, and that prior to occupancy by the Sherborn Historical Society, that a lease or license should be in place. We've had a working group through the summer and fall made up of Sherborn Historical Society group folks, Sherborn Library folks, including Brian Connolly, the chair of the library trustees, and Liz, the library director, and representatives of the town, Sean, myself, the fire chief, Chris Caney, chief building official, working on advancing the design and also informing an MOU, which is what you see before you. This is the product of that coordination. It's been reviewed and prepared. Actually, the format was prepared by town council, and that substance was informed by that working group. I am aware of some edits that should be made to this, so I will be bringing this back at a next meeting, but welcome all of your comments. But would like to get this in place prior to entering a construction contract. By way of the schedule for the project, actually just this week we received the final design plans. So that we're well along with the design, and it's been a collaborative process with all the folks that I mentioned, kind of working through the details of the space and access to the space and how it's going to be constructed and limiting impact to the library, and the funding, balance of funding that will be provided by the Sherborn Historical Society. So by way of schedule, we'll be providing comments back on those final design plans and final specifications in about a week or so. Then the architect will turn those around and we'll have final bid documents. So we'll be able to actually advertise for construction in several weeks. There'll be a bid process where it's publicly advertised. This is a vertical construction, they call it. So there will be filed sub-bids, which makes it a little longer advertising, and there's actually two awards that occur. But it's possible we could be in a place to enter a construction contract by the end of December or early January to start construction. So it would be good to have this MOU in place prior to that. And then in concert with that, to exercise, everybody's in agreement that a license is the appropriate tool once the space is occupied.
A lease.
A lease. Jeez, I keep spinning. So yeah, a lease is the appropriate tool, which would have a set term. It's not revocable by any party. It can be amended with consent of all parties, but a lease is the appropriate mechanism. Hence, and since it's an interest in real property, we will need to do an RFP and put a public RFP out to select a proposer for that lease. Council's prepared a draft of that RFP and a draft lease agreement. They've also informed this MOU. Brian, Liz, and myself met with the Massachusetts Library Board of Commissioners earlier this week, and Liz and Brian have had ongoing conversations with them as well as to not impact the grants that were received for the new library portion, make sure that that's not in jeopardy anyway. I think things are sort of lining up well, but would welcome your input on the MOU language and what should be in a future lease agreement as well. I didn't show that yet, but I can share the draft of the RFP and lease. But it's generally sort of boilerplate right now from town council, and would be informed by this and the proposal received, likely from one proposer. Paul?
So I had 4 observations. The first is, for a variety of legal reasons, I don't think we should be talking about a museum. I think we should be talking about a display center. And while that's not in the documents, it's attached to this are all these drawings. On every drawing, it says it's a Sherborn Museum, as opposed to a history center. And the way you handle that from a legal point of view is not to attach it to as an exhibit to the contract, but simply say that it will be built in accordance with specifications on file with the town administrator or something like that.
Okay.
Just to kind of keep it separate. Secondly, I didn't see in the plans an elevator. I saw a lot of stairs, but I want to be sure that disability needs are being addressed. Is there an elevator?
Is an elevator in the new section of the library? That would be utilized.
So that
it's fully accessible. There's been an ADA review by the architect and Chris Canny. The fire chief has reviewed, actually retained a fire inspection engineer to do a review. But yeah, it's a fully accessible space.
Terrific. It just didn't appear on the plans. There were all these pictures of staircases.
Make use of that and
It's adjacent to it. There's a slight ramp that goes up from the new building to the old building.
Correct.
Okay, but so long as it's there and it's
Fully accessible, yes.
terrific. Then, next comment was the ability to terminate the contractor should be clearly stated to be a town decision. We've just gone through this business at the library where we had problems with a contractor. And if we had to get consent of a private nonprofit and the library trustees and everybody else before we could terminate somebody, those are all legal requirements that muddies the waters. We should consult. I'm not saying we shouldn't consult. We shouldn't just out of the blue terminate a contract. But if we have a bad problem and we miss a step, then our termination is no good. We get into litigation, all this kind of stuff. It'd just be nice to add a sentence that makes it crystal clear that the authority to hire and fire rests with the town.
Thank you.
And those are all the comments I had.
There's only 3. You said you had 4.
The fourth I combined with the other.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just checking.
We were all counting.
On Paul's first point, can we just ask the architect to eliminate the word museum? I mean, they could literally just do a find and replace on their entire document, just replace museum with center, and it'll say Sherborn History Center every time. Would that also accomplish your goal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
That might be.
We'll do one or the other. I'll check with the architect, see what's feasible.
I might add that this is great. In spite of the comments, I was just speaking as a lawyer, but from the point of view of being a select board member, this is exactly what we want to do. This is the right path forward. I'm excited to see this thing happen. It's going to be a wonderful asset for the community. So please take my lawyer comments and
No, it's very
in
important.
context.
Those were good comments.
I had three small comments, but I passed them on to Jeremy, and I think they're really just kind of modest text adjustments. So unless people want to continue, I'm happy to just leave it at that. No, Jeremy can handle that.
We completely trust you.
They're small, they're just,
Yeah, I trust you too completely. But I have a question.
Yep. Trust but verify.
In God we trust, everyone else has to show data.
Yeah.
It mentions that the DPW director will be the project manager. And I know Sean's totally capable of doing it, but I'm wondering if it's realistic from his timescale, and this is not for me to judge. I just raised the question. Some of the problems we had with library construction were due to there was nobody there at times because it's impossible to be looking over the shoulder of the workers all the time, for sure. But I don't want to overload Sean to the point where he's not able to oversee it closely and then gets blamed later, for things that go wrong. Because
It's pretty different though, because, then we were breaking ground and building a new building. This is building out 1,500 square feet of space in an existing building with an existing HVAC and electrical system in place.
Yeah. I'm just,
It's not a.
Has anybody talked to Sean?
Oh, yes, he's been
Yeah.
involved all the way.
Yeah, he's been very involved.
He's looking forward to
Okay, good. No, I don't think
running
he's
the helping
be
the
involved.
project in his capacity.
I'm wondering if maybe
He has
this,
the throughput. I'll keep an eye on it and make sure he's not overwhelmed, but.
Plus, he has a foreman now and a full-time admin.
oh, that's true. Yeah, he has help. Yeah.
Appreciate the concern, Mary. He's looking forward to doing this. He's been involved all the way through to this point. I'd like to see it through.
So do you want a motion to?
No, I'll just bring it back.
No, because it's come back anyways, right? So, okay.
And, thank you.
Great. Okay, moving on now. Next is consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep, at the last meeting, Paul, we almost were never able to leave because you weren't here to move well on the consent agenda. What do we do? All right, select board reports.
I just had a comment. I had the honor and privilege of reading a economic analysis of nails prepared by the professor on the board. And I have to say, it was an amazing document.
Yeah.
Not only did I enjoy reading it, not only did I learn a lot from it, there were some words in there that I had to look up in the dictionary. It was very, very learned. And I mention it because I think the board is benefited by the glow that we have from somebody who can write a paper like that.
And we want the museum to use cut nails on all their.
Thank you very much.
Historical, yeah.
I can, yeah.
Not the museum, the history
I
center.
can
Yes,
check
I
out
got
their
it.
nail collection.
I am told by my daughter, though, that you could take GPT, run a draft through it, and they'll come up with something like what you prepared.
How do you think I did it? Thanks, Paul.
All right, no other select board reports? Town administrator?
I don't have any.
Wow, awesome.
Move to adjourn.
All right, seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Hi. This was a good meeting.